You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. If you're listening to this show, chances are you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees. Whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades, every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time for the Hot Options Report for Wednesday, August 20th. What was dominating the options market today? Let's find out, shall we? Let's kick it off in a little bit of volatility town, shall we? Was it a hot day out there in the VIX options? And the answer was yes, yet again. Another day with a little bit of red on the screen. The NASDAQ leading the charge to the downside. Not quite off as much as yesterday, roughly half the percentage move of yesterday, but still a little red on the screen, all contributing to a little bit more action on the vol front today. 1.3 million contracts changing hands in VIX lands. That's another pretty active day out there today. Of course, we had the VIX settlement going up this morning and the August VIX options going the way of the dodo. So that always helps drive a little bit of paper, but also a little bit more red on the screen out there today, helping to drive some interest. Either way, a lot of action on the VIX tape today. What was the hot option, you might be asking, in VIX today? Well, it was 86,000 of the October 45s. That is an absolutely wild strike out there, listeners. And I have to guess it probably was related to a vertical out here. Let me look here really quickly to see if I can find the other leg of that for you. It looks like it might have actually been a roll, listeners, of about one print of 80,000 of the OC 45s going up for 61 cents, going out against the February doubles, the February 55s for 75 cents. So looks like it probably was a roll, definitely opening on the Feb doubles. And if it was a roll, then they did it for 14 cents, listeners. So interesting, going all the way up to the 55 strike and all the way out to February and paying 14 cents for the privilege. Do you like that, listeners? Would you roll your October now? Interesting time to be doing that. As we keep on rolling out, pun intended, to SPY. SPY having a hot day out there today as well. Again, a little bit of red on the screen. Some Fed minutes sprinkling out there. All of that combining to drive some flow today. Over 10 million contracts going up in SPY today. 10.1 million to be precise. That's against an ADV of 7.9 million. By the way, the ADV in VIX, 744, so nearly 2x the VIX number out there today as well. And what was the hot option out there in SPY today? Over 500,000, so a pretty active day. 521,000 of the 635 puts, SPY going out a few ticks north of 638 today, listeners. So it looks like if you paid anything for those bad boys and they had an average price of around 70 cents, then unfortunately, not a winner chicken dinner for you, of course, if you held them to the end of the session. Let's keep on rolling out to the SPX. Was it a banger day in the SPX? The answer, also yes there as well, which, again, if you take all this volume in the context that it's August 20th, it's the dog days of summer, we should not be seeing days this active right now. So that also makes it extra surprising out there. And extra fascinating as well. 4.64 million contracts going up in the S today. That's against an ADV of 3.8 million. So beating our ADVs across the board, at least so far. We'll see if we can keep it up, listeners. What was the hot option out there in the SPX today? It was the 6,400 calls going up about 201,000 times for an average price of about 271. The S going out a little bit shy of that today, 63.9578. So unfortunately, not looking great for those calls if you held them till the end of the session. Let's keep rolling out to small caps. Now, small caps is one of the few of the major indices where you might actually expect it to beat its ADV these days. It was putting up absolutely absurd numbers last week. Is that the case again today? Are we 4 for 4 on names that are beating their ADV? Well, the answer is no. Small caps coming in just shy of their ADV, right around 1.4 million, putting up 1.28 million contracts. So the streak, unfortunately, comes to an end here. 143,000 contracts on the tape for the hot option in small caps, which was once again September downside. The September 214 puts going up again 143,000 times. Small caps going out almost 225 and a half, 225.41. So got a bit of a ways to go to hit that 214 strike. But nonetheless, that was your hot option. Now, the Qs have been putting up some paper of late as well. The Qs have also been outperforming the other major indexes in terms of percentage moves the last few sessions, doing roughly 2x the percentage moves of the S&P yesterday and indeed today. So you might be forgiven for expecting the Qs to beat their number, and they did, listeners. Nearly 6.5 million contracts on the tape in the Qs. My goodness, that's a lot of paper. The ADV is just a tick north of 4 million, so nearly 2.5 million contracts above that. That's a banger day, listeners. What was the hot option out there in the Qs today? And interestingly enough, when things get wild in the Qs, things also get very zero-day heavy, which is interesting, kind of the opposite of what we've seen in the SPX a lot, which is when things get wild, people tend to go a little bit farther out. But in the Qs, it's all zero-day all the time. It was the 565 calls going up 235,000 contracts that took the top spot today, listeners. Where did the Qs go out? 565.90. So those traded with an average price of about 75 cents. They ended up looking pretty good at the end of the day. At the very least, you can pretty much scratch them out there, listeners. So interesting stuff out there in the Qs. But was it interesting stuff in the single names out there, listeners? Was it a spicy day on the single name most active list? The answer was it was decent. Pretty much half of the numbers we were seeing this time a week ago, listeners, when it cost nearly 1 million contracts to break into the top 10. Not quite there today. 488,000 contracts gets us to our old pal, the monster, listeners, aka MicroStrategy. Putting up, again, 488,000 contracts out there. MicroStrategy has been an interesting one to watch, listeners, because, of course, crypto has come under a bit of assault this week after hitting new record highs and a lot of big contracts like ETH and others. Bitcoin, ETH, retreating a little bit this week. But you know what? Not seeing that playing out in the monster today. It's getting back a lot of what it lost yesterday, gaining nearly 8 handles today, about 2.3%, closing right around 344 and a third out there for the monster. And the hot option, 21,000 of the 370 calls. We were talking about some wild out-of-the-money calls yesterday as well. I do believe they were the 385s out there in the monster yesterday. Yes, that was the case. 385s yesterday, 370 today. So we're seeing some absolutely wild strikes going up for size and opening. And again, these are expiring this week. Once again, we are 10 for 10, I do believe. Yes, 10 for 10. All of our hot options in the single name equities expiring this Friday. So we need MicroStrategy. If you're gobbling these up and they traded for an average price of 45 cents, if you're buying these, you need MicroStrategy to get its butt in gear. It's got 2 more sessions to get up to the 370 strike, let alone those 385s. I do think those are probably maybe a bit of a bridge too far, but again, this name can move, and it needs to start moving if you're buying that premium out there. Number 10, MicroStrategy. Number 9, the Amazonians, putting up 513,000 contracts on the tape today. Not blockbuster numbers, but decent numbers out there for our old pal, the Amazonians. What was the hot option out there in Amazon today, listeners? It was almost 20,000, 19,600 of the 225 calls. And again, Amazon closing a wee bit shy of that today, 223.81, giving up a little over $4, about 420, or nearly 2% today. So 225, not that far away. That said, the average price was around $1.57, so they need to move a bit if they want to pay those bad boys off if they were buying them. As we keep on rolling to the number 8 spot on our list, listeners, and our old pal Robinhood fighting its way back into the top 10 this week, and doing so again today, coming in at the number 8 spot, 569,000 contracts. If you want to hear a bit of a glimpse of what's going on in Robinhood on the options front, as well as their crypto and some of the other offerings, including we talked about the brand new event contracts out there for college and NFL football and a whole bunch more, check out the full network wherever you're getting this show, listeners. It's hanging out there waiting for you. My chat with the folks from Robinhood just yesterday. Fascinating stuff. Robinhood closing today, 105 and about a third, off a little over $2, about 216, or about exactly 2% on the day. It does seem like upside, though, is still dominating the tape out there. The hot option in Robinhood, 23,000 of the 115 calls. Again, these are all expiring at the end of the week. They are all also opening. So 115, average price of around a quarter. Again, I hate to diminish these, but it does look a little bit like the MicroStrategy 385s, maybe a bit of a bridge too far. Only 2 sessions to go. Can it move $10? Of course, anything's possible, but it just seems like a bit of a distant strike at this point. Nonetheless, we'll keep an eye on it as we keep on rolling out to the land of number 7, our old pal Open. Man, this one giveth and it taketh away, and it's taking away again today after having a wild run over the last few sessions. Pretty much a wild week. It got out north of $4 yesterday after seeming like it had stalled out around 2.25. Folks are overwriting the heck out of the 2.5 strike, thinking that was it. Open was done. Blew through that. Blew through $3. Blew through 3.5, all the way up to 4. Threatening 4.25. Now back, closing right around 3.25, 322 out there. It's still, even giving back nearly half a buck today, it's still up about $1 over the past week, about 90 odd cents. So just a wild run out there in Open. Are you slinging Open, listeners? Or are you not touching of the 10-foot pole? That was the response of our audience. Nearly half of you choosing that. You're not touching Open at all out there. But either way, number 7, Open, 647 on the tape today. The hot option in Open land. No more 4s. We were talking about the 4s yesterday. We're down to the 3/2 today. 53,000 of those, going up for an average price of 20 cents. Can we get there? Obviously, you got to get to 370 by Friday to make those break even. Can we get there? It's Open. It can literally do anything, but it is a wild run ahead of it as we keep on rolling to number 6. It's our old pal, the Fruit Company. They've been running for a while off this bump they got from Mr. Cook's trip to Washington. Closing today, pretty much 226 even, giving back about $4.5 or about 2% of the gains they've had over the past few weeks. That said, they're still up about $13.5 or about 6, almost 6.5% over the past month. And what was the hot option out there in good old Appletown today? It was the 225 puts. So seeing some puts sneak into our top 10 most active. That is kind of interesting. Again, this is all opening paper, all expiring this Friday. 225 puts, average price of around $1.50. If you're buying those, listeners, you obviously need this stock to go out 223.5 or lower, listeners, on these bad boys. So you need a little bit of downside on these bad boys to pay off. Then again, got 2 more sessions. Can it drop a few more bucks? Certainly, but it needs to keep moving out there. $1.50, 225 puts expiring on Friday, listeners. Would you be a seller or a buyer? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Either way, the Fruit Company coming in at number 6. All the way out to number 5 we go, listeners. And it's another one of our friends that made a trip to Washington with a bit of a trip to Japan, at least virtually in between there. What are we talking about? We're talking about Intel. Number 5, nearly 1 million contracts, so a big jump from 6 to 5. 971 on the tape for number 5. Our old pals, Intel. Again, they were trading about exactly $20 a little over a week ago. And then the rumor was they were going to go to DC and sell their wares. Indeed, sell a 10% stake down in Washington. And that's still obviously being debated, but it seems like SoftBank stepped in the interim, did buy a piece of Intel. Now, the rumors are coming out that other folks want a piece, but at a discount. And that's hitting the stock today. The stock closing right around 23.5, off about 1 3/4 or nearly 7%. So obviously still up over the past 5 sessions, still up about $1.50 or 7%. But if there's rumors of discounted stock available out there, it's obviously not going to do well for this recent rally in the stock. What was the hot option in Intel today? In spite of that news, it wasn't puts, it was calls. 57,000 of the 24 calls going up, an average price of around 45 cents. Now, obviously, folks could be overwriting those, and about half of them went up on the bid today, so there could be some selling action there. But interesting stuff out there in Intel, just a wild couple of weeks. As we keep on rolling to the number 4 spot, we go out to AMD. 70, almost 71,000 contracts on the tape for AMD listeners. 165.20, off about $1.33, or not even 1%. For AMD today, putting up 1 million contracts, though. 1.01 million contracts changing hands in AMD today. The hot option, 70, almost 71,000 of the 160 puts. So we are seeing puts on the docket here again. So we actually have 2, and I don't think we're even done with the puts sneaking into our top 10 today. So that is kind of interesting. Usually it's mostly YOLO upside that we're seeing in our top 10. So the fact that we're seeing some puts sneak in there, kind of fascinating. Obviously, folks can sell those, and the average price is around $2.05 for those. So again, that raises the question of AMD 160 puts, stock closing a little bit north of 165. Would you rather sell those or buy those for about $2 going out this Friday? I know which way I'd rather go. Which way would you rather go, listeners? Either way, AMD number 4, 1.01 million. Number 3, out to Tesla we go. Closing today, again, a little bit of a sell-off, a little bit shy of 324, 323.90, giving up almost $5.50 or about 1 2/3%. Putting up nearly 2 million contracts, 1.82 million. And the hot option in Tesla, yet again, we got to put topping our list. That is kind of interesting. 77,000 of the 320 puts going up. I'm hard-pressed to think of another episode of the hot options report where we had more than one put sneaking into our top 10. Today, we have 3 so far. So that is pretty wild. Maybe a sign of some sentiment shifting out there. If past is prologue, folks are probably buying a lot of those puts in Tesla. So kind of interesting what we have going on out here. If we keep on rolling out to our old pal Palantir, climbing all the way to the number 2 spot out there today, listeners. Closing pretty much 156 even out there, putting up 2.6 million contracts in Palantir. So an absolutely wild day out there. It closed at 156, but it hit a low earlier today of 142. What a 14 handle range on the day. That is absolutely wild, and obviously the reason why so much flow going up out there. This is his longest losing streak since April at the nadir, selling off 20% from the high. Obviously still well north of the 150 strike as we close today. So that's still been on a good run. It was $20, $10 not that long ago, listeners. So bear that in mind as you're seeing these hyperbolic headlines. But still in a wild day out there in Palantir. What was the hot option on a super spicy day in Palantir today? Over 14 handle range. It was not the puts, which is kind of interesting given the sell-off and equally aggressive rebound. It was the 155 calls going up 154,000 times for an average price of about $275. So folks still willing to shell out for the 155 calls. Again, $275 closed at 156 even. So you need another $1.75 on the top, listeners, by Friday to make these bad boys break even if you did indeed buy these. But interesting stuff out there, listeners. Wild paper. I would have expected maybe some other strikes, given how low we got today, to maybe take the top spot. But nope, that's why we do the show and crunch the numbers, listeners. That means our old pal Nvidia still hanging out at the top of the heap. 3.38 million contracts going up for Nvidia today. Nvidia closing a little bit north of the 175 strike, 175.40 to be precise. Net off about a quarter, so not a huge net move today, even though we did see a pretty sharp sell-off again around the same time that Palantir was taking a beating. Nvidia got down to 168.80. So things were looking pretty dire there. I guess you have a glass half full, glass half empty. A big sell-off, but also a pretty sharp rally in second half of the session out there. So closing only down a quarter. So absolutely wild stuff. What was dominating the tape on a nearly 3.5 million contract day in Nvidia? It was 222,000 of the 175 calls, average price right around $1.50. Obviously they went out with an intrinsic value of about 40 cents, so needs to run a little bit by Friday to make those bad boys break even. But interesting stuff nonetheless. Interesting stuff across the board for our top 10 and indeed our entire hot options report today. That is going to do it for us on the hot options report and indeed for the network today, Wednesday, August 20th. See you back here tomorrow with our usual Thursday triple header, kicking things off with the option block, followed by This Week in Futures Options, and of course, wrapping up our broadcast day tomorrow with another episode of the Hot Options Report. So we'll see you then, and of course, stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.